again, I'm Susie Menare from the MEF crew. Welcome back to MEF Connects Wholesale. We started talking about roaming just a minute ago with Stefan. We'll deep dive into this topic with Gilbert Relou, who's head of consultancy and strategic development within Kaleido Intelligence. Hello, Gilbert.
Hi, Susie.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm all good. Just watched Stefan's session. He nicely set the stage for me and for the panel with some good topics to further discuss on.
Yep, so yes, you're aligned. That's great. We can't wait to hear from you and your panelists because you've lined up quite a few people there, and I'm sure they all have their own perspective on what's going on in the roaming industry. So really eager to hear more from you, and I'll leave you the floor to lead that session.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
As mentioned, Stefan just set the stage with some good topics, and we have a very nice, experienced panel for you. So we'll gradually bring them onto the stage here, starting with Prakash from Ooredoo. He's the director of voice and roaming. Prakash, please welcome and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you, Susie, and thank you, MEF, for this opportunity. So I basically take care of voice and roaming at Ooredoo Group. So I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, spent a large part of it in the commercial consumer side, and then the last 8-9 years in the wholesale side. So what I understand, I try and understand a consumer completely end to end, and that allows me to do my role much better. So looking forward to this conversation.
Perfect. Thank you, Prakash. Looking forward to it as well. Next, we bring on stage is Alberto, head of marketing and intelligence B2B at Telefónica. Alberto, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Gilbert. Hi, my name is Alberto, head of market intelligence and B2B at Telefónica Global Roaming. So basically, I deal with all the technologies, or I push all the technologies that should be placed already in the roaming industry, or should work in the roaming industry.
Good. Thank you and welcome. Next, we bring on Mihaela, head of operations, Vodafone voice and roaming services. Mihaela, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks.
So I'm Mihaela Ambrozie. I'm responsible for technology operations at voice and roaming services in Vodafone. More than 20 years in the industry, and I'm very pleased to be here with you today.
Good. Thank you and welcome. And then last but not least, we bring on Brandon, CEO of Cellusys. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you, Gilbert. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Cleary. I'm the CEO for Cellusys. We help networks and CSPs basically analyzing and controlling network traffic. And we work hand in hand, both in the roaming and security spaces within the industry.
Good. Thanks and welcome too. And I think when I said I have a very experienced panel, I was not exaggerating because we all bring many years of experience in this market. We just saw Stefan setting a little bit the stage with some of the trends that we see in the market. Now, this session says what keeps us and what keeps the industry awake at night when it comes to roaming. And of course, we saw a lot happening. So the obvious first question from my side to the panelists and to each of the panelists is, Prakash, to you first, what keeps you awake at night when you look at our market and the industry here?
Yeah, so I think let me put what keeps me awake in two sections. One is the pleasant staying awake and one is the worrying staying awake, right? So the pleasant staying awake is opportunity that I can see. So a lot of what I get in terms of the pleasant staying awake is from what I see from other businesses. So for example, the airline industry has been declaring profits, declaring traffic around the same levels as it used to be before COVID. We're seeing an upsurge of flights and tickets and all of that going on. That also translates into a lot more traffic on our roaming customers, and we're able to see that in our markets. So that's the pleasant part of it, staying awake. What actually worries me is, I don't think we're making enough revenue, obviously, because we're doing a lot of things to engage customers and make them more happier. And that does not necessarily result into revenue. So therefore, one thing that worries me is what's going to happen there. Obviously, the entire proliferation of eSIMs and the way they're proliferating into the environment If they're not managed perfectly, then it becomes an issue that we need to take care. And the third thing is quality, because as our data networks become more mature, 4G, 5G, consumers are expecting better and better data services. It's not necessary that the data service is the same when they travel as against what they get at home. And that becomes a little bit of a challenge. And therefore, these are the things that worry me. But the other two are the opportunities that I can see clearly, which is travel coming back, traffic coming back, which makes me believe that we have a future as an industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't worry, panel, we're starting with a question of what keeps you awake at night, but it doesn't mean this is becoming a negative session, obviously, because we also see a lot of opportunity. But first, Alberto, staying with the first initial question, what keeps you awake at night when thinking about our market here?
Quite a few things, actually, but I would say it's more on the opportunity side. No? So on the consumer segment, we see the impact of travel eSIMs is having on the industry. I would say that the travel eSIMs are completely shaking both the retail and the wholesale roaming industry. We will go deeper afterwards on these comments. But another part is on the M2M and IoT segment. No? So for many years, we've seen how these devices, the amount of devices is growing very fast. And as an industry, we need to make sure that this continue growing and growing. No? And for this purpose, for this sake, we need to make sure that we deploy the right technologies in terms of GSA, DCE, when we talk in roaming. No? So I think we are facing very, very interesting challenges in the coming months and years.
Okay, good. And Mihaela, you also were working much on the operational side. There were some technical requirements that Stefan addressed. Any of the items he mentioned part of what keeps you awake at night? What are the key things for you?
Yeah, it's true that the triples are back. Technology is evolving, which is very good, and we want to be at the forefront of the evolution to diversify our portfolios and offer new services to our customer in a more secure way. But all this evolution comes with the additional complexity, right? And we need to understand how we can address it from the operations perspective through partnering with service providers which are offering managed services or through automation. We need to look more into the automation of the manual tasks, so we allow and enable our teams to focus on what brings more business benefits. Also, the travel SIM is something positive and, of course, of area of concern. I think, in general, the way the new generation is consuming services needs to be taken into account by the industry. We need to adapt. We need to work in this new reality. And travel SIM is one reality we need to live with, either by adopting or having partnerships with the value-added services providers, or launching roaming like a proposition. So it's a good moment for the industry, I would say.
Good. Brendan, of course, from the panel, you are the only one, let's say, not a mobile operator, but you are working with many mobile operators. So you have a bit of a sort of a helicopter view, perhaps even on looking at all the operators and all the discussions that you have. From your observation, or perhaps more in general, what do you think keeps everybody awake at night when you look at our industry?
Yeah, I think you put it quite well there. I mean, while we're not an operator ourselves, we would obviously engage with all of our customer bases and all of our partners, and they would highlight the different kind of areas of concern, or let's say the areas of deficiencies that we could potentially help them with. Certainly, I definitely echo the sentiments of all of the other panelists. That is certainly the feedback that we're getting back. But I think another thing to add to that as well is that the physical headcount, or the amount of kind of human resources that were traditionally in roaming, is becoming smaller. So from our perspective, we're seeing seeing a lot of complexity with all of these new technologies, all of this, let's say, evolving landscape, and then less and less people to be able to address these concerns. So certainly, I believe that Mihaela there said automation being key is definitely going to be, so necessary in addressing some of these problems, and for just having the visibility of what's happening as well, because you've got so many different technology types, so many different customer types and device types. Even just keeping up on what's happening on the network is a big challenge.
Yeah, certainly complexity has already been mentioned, I guess, by everybody, and we do observe in the market that the teams are not really growing there now. When you look at one of the first slides that Stefan showed with the technical requirements, what was very much on top was VoLTE roaming, and I guess we all remember as a market that a couple of years ago we were all warning it, guys, VoLTE roaming is coming. And then finally, what happened, of course, was the 2G and 3G network shutdowns, especially in the US, and everybody then really started prioritizing. And it seems right now that everybody's very much aware of it. Well, looking at the ranking on the top, it shows that. But at the same time, with 5G standalone, with IoT roaming, with traveling, some of the items that you mentioned were not, of course, yet on the list. What needs to When you look at that, what needs to be done, or what needs to happen to get the right priority there? And we'll just follow a little bit the same order as what we just did. Prakash, what's your view there? What needs to be done to get the right priority, like for a 5G standalone roaming, for the new business models on IoT to be done? What do you think is needed?
Yeah. So from my side, what I could look at is three particular actionables that so that we're very clear on what has to be done. One of which is automation. I agree with Mihaela completely. We are also in a group called IO where we do a lot of work. In fact, Brandon has contributed immensely on trying to automate a lot of these processes. That's something that we need to get done quickly if we want to stay ahead of the game. The second is the identification of margins, especially when you do 5G SA or 5G SA roaming kind of transactions. There has to be a margin flow throughout, because there are many more partakers of the entire use case, and therefore, if there is not sufficient margin, there's not going to be sufficient interest, and therefore the identification of margins end to end is a very important thing we need to do for us to be able to increase the the velocity of adoption of these items. And the third one I'd look at is use cases. We don't have too many use cases. I think the most relevant now are the World Cup, the sporting use cases, and the coronation of the king, for example, in the UK, which I think Vodafone did. So we need more use cases, and there needs to be templates. So the more templates you have, the faster you can execute. Because events, especially events which are big 5G SA kind of, like the UEFA Cup final, for example. Now, if we can templatize that and replicate it fast, that's a great way to become relevant again. And in all of that, roaming will be a part, because you're not going to get only domestic people using that network. Yeah. So that's what I thought I should put.
Yeah, good. No, very good point. And I also like your final comment that it's not just a domestic play. The strength of roaming throughout all these years is the fact that we make services work on a global level. Alberto, what do you think is still needed, let's say, to not make the same mistake as we did with VoLTE roaming and start a little bit too late, let's say, in prioritizing it for these other services?
No, here I must say completely aligned with what Prakash was commenting, in the sense that, first of all, roaming is a key enabler for many IoT or M2M use cases. Therefore, we need to make the things right in roaming to enable as well domestic use cases that will require roaming for sure. But at the end, it's not a matter of pushing one specific technology or one specific commercial agreement. It's a matter of creating the right ecosystem for these use cases to pop up. In the sense that we need to push in parallel technologies such as 5G SA, and when we talk in roaming, needless to say, busy, and this is quite challenging. But in parallel, working at Telefónica Global Roaming, for us, is fundamental to develop the right framework for the negotiations, for the wholesale roaming agreements that we close with all of you guys. And I would say that these are the two, let's say, commercial and technical aspects. But as well, and something that we will touch base later, we need to facilitate as much as possible developers to build their use cases on top of networks, no? So that the developers are able to build the use cases based on low latency, on extended coverage, massive IoT. So we need to put all these different pieces together. And once this is done, I think industry will.
With the developers, I guess you're specifically also referring to one of the closing slides of Stefan concerning telco API, open API, and what's being done there. Yeah.
At the end, we have a great asset here, and we need to make sure that everybody is able to access and retrieve the right information, of course.
Yeah, no, true. Mihaela, from your point of view, and again, you're a bit more an operational hat on there. So for you, it really has probably been hurting a lot in the beginning with VoLTE roaming and all the efforts that had to be done there. So how can you avoid it from happening with 5G standalone or with the different business models for IoT roaming, for instance?
I think it's very important to create awareness about what is coming. And something that we also discussed in the past in the mobile ecosystem is that operators can start small, right? We are not all moving at the same pace, and that is fine. We can start small, outsourcing some of our capabilities to service providers, and then as soon as we have use cases or more use cases, then we can transition to in-house deployment, right? So there is an increasing enterprise demand concerning guaranteed quality of service, low latency use cases, and even mobility between private and public networks, right? We mentioned concepts, we mentioned stadiums. So this type of use cases need to be considered by the market so they don't miss on the new opportunities. And I think you guys do a great job in a mobile ecosystem forum, and there are also other forums by educating, by explaining what are the new use cases coming, and for the markets to prepare and look around for support from service providers to start small and enable and grow with their enterprise customers.
Good. Yeah. It one of the items already mentioned was on the let's say the identification of margins. So that's really the commercial one, but insights in traffic, of course, is extremely important, also from a security perspective. Brandon, of course, you are the expert on that side. That also must be a high priority, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about any different kind of traffic profiles, traffic protocols, it just increases the attack surface or any potential vulnerabilities that might exist within a network. So, I mean, with all of these changes, I mean, if you kind of take a higher level holistic view, it's really just having the ability to monitor what's actually happening at home and in your roaming partners and be able to figure out, is there a threat that's occurring and can I do something about it? I mean, if we even look at the Open API initiative, I mean, that's just another, let's say, attack surface that can be exploited. You know, I think there's great possibilities and great opportunities for using that Open API from enterprises to the mobile network domain. But, you know, as Prakash mentioned earlier, there's a great opportunity for automation even between two operators. You know, one of the areas that we were looking into was, you know, launching of roaming services and testing roaming services. Again, using this Open API initiative could be used from that perspective. But certainly, you know, to kind of bring it all back, it's looking at, you know, IoT, it's looking at VoLTE, it's looking at 5G, and all of these new changes that are happening. You know, what do you focus on? How do you do it with the limited amount of resources that you have? I think is the big challenge that we're all trying to focus on, and to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve rather than be by it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so there's a lot of technical developments, and for a long time I was thinking, also looking at the survey results that we see on the Kaleido side, like IoT roaming, that is the big new revenue opportunity, and absolutely that will be a big revenue opportunity because it is all incremental. And then suddenly, in the last year, gradually this travel eSIM opportunity passed us by at these was roaming events that we're all attending. And especially during the last one in Istanbul, it was really the the hot topic. So my question is, what really drives consumers to use these travel eSIMs, and what should operators do in response? With obviously a bit of a difference between wholesale and retail, and I'm just keeping the same order here with Prakash, you first on that one.
Yeah, so the use or the need or the want typically is that consumers want to be connected when they travel, especially when they go to foreign countries or countries away from their home. Now, with Instagram, Snapchat, and all those kinds of applications happening, people want to circulate photographs far more than they've ever done in history, right? So sale of cameras are down, but sale of smartphones with cameras are up. So that itself shows people like to share their lives. So I think one of the things is, it's not that customers don't want to pay. It's a sweet spot that we've got to look at. So actually at Ooredoo, we do a lot of stuff. In fact, I put that out yesterday so that people understand how we collaborate. It's not a hierarchy or an organization chart which has to help us. It's got to be the ability to collaborate across teams. So we collaborate across technology, we collaborate across retail, as well as in the opcos and the group. Our propositions are made to to look at the way the customer travels and not the way we want to think he travels, right? So we have launched Roam Like Home across markets where there is no legislation, for example, because we believe that customers should have the ability to travel at no extra expense or no fear of bill shocks. We have actually removed pay-as-you-go charging in most of our largest opcos. So we've got rid of toxic revenues because we've said that does not improve the customer experience. And we've also launched a lot of retail propositions in order to appeal to customers and the way they travel. We've launched something like a single country where customers can just buy a roaming benefit for one country. And we've also now in Kuwait, for example, piloting an eSIM proposition, which is available for non-Ooredoo customers in Kuwait to come on to Ooredoo when they roam. So I think the point is that, yes, travel eSIMs will come. In a way, it's a good thing because it will expand the market. People will start realizing they don't need to go to public Wi-Fi when they travel. They can stay connected on their own, own connectivity. And therefore, once we expand the market, then everybody gets a lot more business, so to speak. So those were the points that I thought I should bring up.
No, very good, very good. And I must say, so far in the panel, I like the fact that everybody is referring to use cases and customer experience, because that is what it's in that sense, of course, all about. And when you look at travel eSIM, people were already buying physical SIM cards, were already going on Wi-Fi and have this desire to be connected. And travel eSIM is just an easier way in some occasions to do that. And it's not just all about cost. Initially, that is often a main reason to do so, but there's more to it there. Alberto, perhaps you can add some comments there on what you see with travel eSIM capabilities there, perhaps the wholesale opportunity, and what else might be added.
Yeah, precisely what you mentioned, Gilbert, no? The fact that today we would do whatever it takes to have connectivity wherever we travel. This is a must. But I would say, luckily, at least three of us working at a telco operator, no? So our core business is to provide connectivity to people. And as a connectivity provider, we have many options to match this demand of our clients. So, for instance, and we have quite a lot of examples within the Telefónica group, we could launch retail propositions that generate value for the operators and for the clients. No? And the retail propositions that an operator could launch is a top quality product in the sense that we can provide coverage worldwide to all the networks, access to the very latest technologies such as 5G non-SA. We have a VoLTE. We allow our clients to keep their telephone number. No? So these are unique advantages that we have as an operator. Yeah. But all of that, I think we have to acknowledge as well that some of our clients, there might be a segment that is looking for alternatives. No? And that is where a travel eSIM might make sense for a specific segment of our customer base. But again, we are a telco operator, therefore we are in the best position to match this demand.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you say the common travel eSIM here is really a travel eSIM from Telefónica yourself, not the wholesale where you're collaborating with other travel eSIM players.
So at the end, this is up to each operator to develop their own strategy. On the market, there's many ways to monetize. But in my case, I was referring to the extremely good retail propositions that most of our affiliates actually have already in the market. Yeah. And we see that they have a huge usage in percentual terms of our customer base. No? So this is a very good example that we have here.
Good. Brandon, you made a comment earlier from a security perspective that with travel eSIM, of course, and with let's say the sponsor networks and the way that's all organized, that there's also a bit of a risk there. So we're all getting enthusiastic on the fact that we can broaden, let's say, the total connectivity and have really everybody connected. But what is the biggest item that we should be taking into account here from a security perspective?
So I think from a security perspective, if you kind of load up a travel eSIM into your phone while you're roaming, effectively you're getting connectivity from a different provider. So you're being served by a network that is no longer your own, and that may bring in certain threats. If your network has a security in place, they will provide a certain level of security for preventing certain communication going through the handset for different vulnerabilities. They're very well publicized at this stage, from location tracking, SMS interception, voice call interception. But it wouldn't be entirely different than from being in a normal roaming context anyway. So you have to basically weigh the pros and the cons together. But I think really when we're talking about eSIMs, while security is always a very important topic, you're really talking about the individual consumer. And going back to the consumer on this, why does someone choose a travel eSIM? My own personal opinion, it's driven hugely by price. Price is, for me, the main factor in why they would do that. But in order to avail of this important price optimization, shall we say, they have to go through some extra steps. They have to download a profile, scan a QR code, configure settings on their phone. And for me, that will always be a much worse experience than just going to a new country, turning on their phone and receiving service. So I think the seamless nature of that, from a consumer perspective, it's less complex, it's probably more desirable. But I think, as Prakash put it just perfectly, it's about the uncertainty, it's about that bill shock. So if you give the certainty to a roamer as they're going abroad that maybe it's incrementally a little bit more expensive, but it's not going to be hugely more expensive, I believe that would be, the defining, I suppose, conversation piece when we talk about travel eSIMs. So that's kind of just my own 2 cents on it.
No, but thanks. I mean, this is absolutely true, I think. I mean, if you don't need to do anything, that's the best, most frictionless way of travel, right? And that's the opportunity that the retail teams have within mobile operations. But often there are silos here where you have wholesale and where you have retail, and we're often on the wholesale side where we at the back end are organizing things, while at the retail side, you don't always have control on what's being done there. So just a quick question. I said we're all more on the wholesale side. Do we see travel eSIM as an opportunity for wholesale? Yes or no? Alberto, yes or no?
A clear yes.
Yes. Prakash?
Yeah.
Yes. Mihaela?
Yeah, it depends, but mainly yes.
Yes or no? Huh? Yeah, you're right. It depends, of course. I know. Brandon, you see it as an opportunity or a threat, a wholesale roaming for the travel eSIM?
I'll be controversial on that, and I'll see it as a threat. I'll say no.
Okay. Now, what's funny is I mentioned that in the past year, travel eSIM suddenly really exploded from the level of attention there, whereas eSIM itself has already been around for a while, particularly on the Internet of Things side. Mihaela, with Vodafone, you are really very active on that area already for many years. Can you share a bit more on what you see there when we talk about customer experience on the enterprise demand? What is really needed there when you look at it from that eSIM perspective, perhaps also a little bit the 5G that we touched on before with the network capabilities that we have. What are your observations there?
Yeah, as I mentioned, enterprise customers need enable new use cases, and these use cases need guaranteed quality of service, and the operators need to have near real-time visibility to the customer experience. They need to secure this quality of service is expected. They need to monitor them, and then, of course, they need to increase security. To Brandon's point about security, there's with the evolution of the technology, we have new use cases which may enable additional threats. 5G standalone, for example, is an example of technology that could prevent security threats. So it's good from that perspective to adopt 5G standalone, because we are going to have this network and customers all together will be protected. Going back to the quality of service, yes, is becoming very relevant, and the tools that we need to ensure that we have the right visibility at the right level with the right granularity is very critical.
Yeah. And Prakash, within your group, you also have a few very advanced 5G networks. Do you see, but also a few that are more developing, do you see a clear advantage of the ones that are already on 5G when you look at this from the use cases and from the user experience for these enterprise for this enterprise demand?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Actually, you're right. We do have some markets which are leading in 5G, and some markets which are still grappling with 4G, and some markets which still exist on 3G. So we're actually a nice potpourri of all kinds of standards. So you're right, 5G, especially in the business, what we see is definitely use cases that we can implement. Obviously, that comes with other things. Like I was saying, that we need to have far more templates and far more understanding within the industry. How do you templatize and replicate stuff rather than reinventing a lot of things? And that actually will accelerate the adoption, because I don't think spectrum, at least in the rest of the world, is getting any cheaper. We're still paying a lot for our spectrum. And therefore, the faster you replicate it is the faster you'll be able to monetize it. And the only way you can monetize it is when you have templatized use cases, which actually say what are the things you got to look out for and what are the things that will give you an incremental revenue, right? So I think all operators are stressed for margins, and and therefore the faster we are able to execute things, the better it would be for everyone, including for the customer, because the longer we take, the prices will only go up. It won't go down, because we might throttle the genuine use cases coming up.
Okay, good. I'm reading some messages here that we need to start wrapping up on our panel with a video that might be popping up soon. Quickly, Alberto, also with the 5G network capabilities for you and also telco API, is that where you see the big opportunity, or is it still more on the LP WAN side?
So both, no? So today we see that there's clear demand for low power wide area because extended coverage of narrow band, because energy savings on the devices. And this is today, I understand as a given almost. But thinking in the future, Telefónica is very active, as you mentioned, on the Open Gateway initiative, because we see use cases as well, for instance, today on the finance industry. So banks that would allow a given transaction depending on the location of a specific client. This is already happening today. But as mentioned in the previous slide, so there will be demand for quality of service or for hedge selection as well. So we see quite a lot of potential in this direction.
Yeah. Good. Then automation, visibility of traffic, looking at use cases, customer experience. Brandon, Mihaela, I already have Susie here. Closing comments, also having these things in mind, and then we really need to finish.
No, I think you've really wrapped that up really nicely. So you did a good job in wrapping everything up.
I tried.
That's great. No, it's been a great session. Certainly, we will carry on those discussions in future webinars or panels, but definitely there's a lot happening in the roaming industry. There is still a lot happening and different stages, depending on where you are. I heard also the resource issue that's come up again, twice today.
Yeah.
So certainly in the industry, that is something that will need to be considered.
Hopefully, with the right use cases, more resources can be added.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, thank you very much, Gilbert, for leading us through this very interesting panel. Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Alberto. Mihaela, thank you very much for joining. And last but not least, Brandon. A big thank you from our side, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Susie. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
On the IoT.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.